Good afternoon and welcome to today's live webinar, Fortifying the Enterprise Security Ecosystem, the Pursuit of Endpoint Management and Security Consolidation. Security threats are constantly evolving, posing significant risks to organizations. This webinar will guide you through essential strategies to integrate endpoint and vulnerability management effectively. I'm Justine Siebke, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined here today by Rocco Fiore, whose day job is working with customers to understand their endpoint management and security needs and help them solve their challenges with Syxsense automation and orchestration. Rocco also has a string of networking, cybersecurity, and artificial intelligence certifications and makes up 1/3 of our expert panel on our 0 Day to Everyday monthly podcast. Before we get started, I have some quick housekeeping notes. We expect the session to be around 30 minutes today, and we really appreciate you taking the time from your busy schedule to join us and learn more about this important topic. If you have anything you'd like to ask Rocco, then please use the Q&A facility to let us know. We hope to have some time at the end of the session to go through any questions, but if time gets away from us, we will follow up with any outstanding questions with you individually. I'll be monitoring the chat facility while Rocco's presenting, so let me know if you have any technical difficulties, but if it all goes square-shaped, don't worry, we will send you a link to the recording in the next day or so, and please feel free to share this with colleagues and friends. As part of our ongoing quest to bring vulnerability management automation to the masses, we've produced an exclusive ebook to compile our commissioned research and highlight important trends and viewpoints on the subject. Rocco is going to guide us through this ebook and its findings on today's session. So with that, I'll hand over to him to look at today's agenda. Thanks, Rocco.
Of course, thank you, Justine. Hello, everyone. Good to be here with you today. So taking a look at what we'll cover today. First, insights from research. We're going to be touching on key findings from the 2023 State of Vulnerability Management and other leading reports. Second, the modern organization. We're going to talk about how remote work and device sprawl are reshaping security needs. We're going to go behind the scenes, CIO priorities for 2025, talk about strategic goals that align cybersecurity with organizational growth. Next up, the vulnerability challenge. We're going to be speaking about a deep dive into persistent security gaps and their implications. And then coming up on the final stretch of our presentation, the case for consolidation, why unified tools are essential to improving efficiency and security. How did we get there? We're going to talk about an implementation roadmap, a practical phased approach to achieving consolidation, and then talk about resilience in our manifesto. Resilience is a strategic imperative. How to build resiliency into your cybersecurity framework. Feel free to note questions as we go. We will have a Q&A at the end. And now let's get started by looking at some key research findings. So introducing the report. Our new report aims to provide insights into how endpoint management and vulnerability management can support a more secure enterprise ecosystem. It reveals the interaction between endpoint security and management and identifies the challenges and benefits of consolidating these functions. The report pulls together, simply put, research from multiple sources. This includes the 2023 State of Vulnerability Management report by Syxsense and Cybersecurity Insiders, as well as Managing the Endpoint Vulnerability Gap, which is a report by TechTarget's Enterprise Security Group, also known as ESG. These sources provide comprehensive data on the current state of endpoint and vulnerability management. The ESG study surveyed 381 companies, focusing on those with hybrid or remote work models specifically. The sample represented various industries and organizational sizes to ensure a broad perspective. So our report analyzes critical metrics in all of these categories, such as the number of devices employees interact with on a daily basis, the increase in security vulnerabilities overall, the time taken to patch these vulnerabilities, and the percentage of endpoints scanned for vulnerabilities. These metrics helped identify trends and gaps in current practices and highlight the need for better coordination between security and IT operations. And finally, the report looks at the benefits of consolidating endpoint management and security and the challenges organizations face within vulnerability management. Our goal is to provide actionable recommendations on how to address all of these issues. So let's look at the modern organization, how that's evolving, where it's come from. When we commissioned our research, one of the things that we wanted to look at was the state of the modern organization. And what we found was this. The study confirmed the remote working is not simply going away. We hear a lot about return to office, hybrid workforce, etc. It's a simple fact that remote working is here to stay. In fact, and as we see from the graph presented, only 3% of organizations have reverted to all employees being based on site. The vast majority, over 80%, have between 6% and half of all their staff working remotely at some level. So even though there's return to office, it may not be full-time. And that poses similar challenges to fully remote. Of course, we're not here to make a determination this is a good thing or not. That's not our goal. There are downsides to remote working, especially for inexperienced staff, new staff, employee training, etc. But there is certainly strong demand in remote working as well. A study by Gartner in 2022 found that most respondents wanted to spend 45% of their time working from home. Another key aspect of the modern organization within this report was revealed is the growing number of devices in use. Only 2% of the digital workforce rely on a single device, whereas the more than 70% typically interact with 4 or more devices on a daily basis. That number is growing and growing, and that combined with remote work creates an exponential factor of risk across the organization. We can see this playing out in current events with, it's recently back in the news again, the MOVEit file transfer vulnerability. Highly exploited vulnerability. Attackers exploited a zero-day flaw in the popular file sharing tool, affecting over 300 organizations and exposing sensitive data. We've just recently, in the past week, seen some of that, even more of that sensitive data dumped onto the dark web. And many of these impacted systems specifically were connected to remote employees. So this event incredibly underscores the importance of visibility and control in hybrid work environments. And as we see, this event is just becoming a thorn in the side of many large organizations longer than anyone would have thought. Now let's take a look behind the scenes. How are CIOs and security leaders managing this? And we can let's start with really the issues at hand here. CIOs and security leaders are juggling a wide range of challenges, which is putting forth a greater justification for consolidation, which is the aim of our report. And we'll get into specifically solving these issues a little bit later on, but let's talk about them first. Evolving cyber threats. The cyber threat landscape is constantly changing. With new vulnerabilities and attack vectors, we see it emerging regularly and faster than ever before. This dynamic environment makes it difficult for CIOs and security leaders to stay ahead of potential threats. We know traditional security measures, and we're seeing this, often fall short in addressing these sophisticated attacks, such as ransomware, and we see it from APTs. The need for continuous monitoring and rapid response capabilities is more critical than ever. Bad actors, whether they be advanced persistent threats or for-profit ransomware gangs, they're only moving faster and faster, and they're getting more and more and more clever. Secondly, complex IT environments. Modern IT environments are increasingly complex with a mix of on-premise, cloud, hybrid infrastructures. This complexity is further compounded by the proliferation of all of these devices that we spoke about, including laptops, smartphones, IoT devices, etc. Integration and coordination. Effective vulnerability and endpoint management requires seamless integration between various tools and systems. However, and we see this at Syxsense in our day-to-day, many organizations are struggling with fragmented security solutions. They don't communicate well with each other. They lead to a lack of integration leads to gaps in security coverage, inefficiencies in threat detection and response, and making it difficult to coordinate between internal IT and security teams. Resource constraints. CIOs and security leaders often face resource constraints, limited budgets, shortage of skilled cybersecurity professionals. The talent gap is a well-documented issue, making it difficult to find and retain talent. And additionally, the budget limitations can restrict the ability to invest in security solutions to cover the gap of a lack of personnel. So balancing the need for robust security and financial constraints is often a constant struggle we are hearing about every day. Top of that, regulatory compliance. Compliance with regulatory standards adds another layer of complexity. We're talking about GDPR, HIPAA, PCI DSS, ISO 27001, and even new AI-driven standards. All these mandate-specific security controls and practices, sometimes they have overlap, sometimes they don't. So lack of clarity is another issue. So with lack of clarity, the sheer volume of data generated by security tools can be overwhelming. We went from the issue of not enough information to too much. We're drowned in data on a daily basis. This can lead to alert fatigue. Critical alerts are missed or ignored due to the high volume. This compounded with a lack of staff makes the issue exponential as well. So implementing effective data analytics and threat intelligence is crucial to managing and prioritizing security alerts. And again, we mentioned it before, but balancing security and innovation. We must make sure that security supports business growth and innovation and does not become a hindrance. We must find ways to integrate both security seamlessly into business processes without stifling this integration. This requires a deep understanding of both technological advancements and the potential security threats. And lastly, demonstrating ROI. Demonstrating a return on investment ties everything here together, right? A good security program, good security controls will have an ROI. It will support the business. It will not hinder the business. Now, let's look at some of goals for 2025 moving forward. We know what the issues are, right? Now, how are CIOs addressing this? So as we look ahead, CIOs are prioritizing strategies that align with IT business goals, right? According to Gartner's CIO survey here, the following objectives are top of mind. Embedding IT in the business strategy. IT is no longer a support function. It's a driver of innovation, customer engagement, and competitive advantage. Here, modernizing legacy systems as well, as we see that's a common thread throughout all of these, is many organizations are replacing outdated systems with modular, scalable architectures that enable agility and innovation. As we just mentioned, the importance to have IT and security support innovation. And then strengthening cybersecurity. Protecting data, systems, and customers is not just a technical challenge, it's a business imperative. Cybersecurity investments must, as we again mentioned, demonstrate measurable ROI to gain executive buy-in. And all of these, again, the common thread is security consolidation, supporting all of these goals. Many goals, how we attack them with security consolidation, improving efficiency, unified tools to streamline the process, enhance reporting, reduce risk. We're going to take more look at that more in a second. The vulnerability challenge. So as we see here, showcased in our study, some statistics and numbers on why we should care about vulnerabilities, right? And some other numbers I have aren't particularly shown here that are really very relevant are 2/3 of attacks involved ransomware, about 68%. They also found that an exploited vulnerability was the root cause of the attack in 37% of the cases. We often hear about phishing, unpatched systems, and exploited vulnerabilities we see are increasingly outweighing even phishing attacks or the human element in that regard. The key reason behind this is the growth of ransomware as a service. This kind of service relies heavily on automation, and so naturally vulnerability exploitation makes organizations easy to target. On the whole, we're simply not doing enough to resolve vulnerabilities and fix them quickly. It's evident. To start with, only 10% of organizations are monitoring all their endpoints, and the research also showed that organizations are more likely to suffer multiple cyber attacks if they had fewer managed endpoints. Then around 2/3 of organizations, about 65%, conduct scanning on a periodical basis. In fact, only 3% of respondents in the research admitted to only scanning when a problem arises. Complete opposite of being proactive, right? And finally, we do find vulnerabilities that are taking way too long to fix. Bad actors are getting faster. We're going in the opposite direction. Over a week, for almost half of vulnerabilities, what this means is that threat actors typically have a 2-week window to learn about a new vulnerability, find out what organizations are impacted, engineer and exploit, and execute it. And that's plenty of time for well-funded criminal teams. This is, we're talking about weeks here when bad actors, they're working in the time frame of minutes at this point. So this is an area that needs to be addressed. We've seen it time and time becoming greater and greater, increasing need at Syxsense. Now, we mentioned consolidation before, right? So let's look at some of the drivers in consolidation, how this lines up with what we spoke about in terms of CIO goals, some of the persistent issues we're seeing for IT leaders. So organizations are already looking to consolidate endpoint management and vulnerability management to enhance that overall security posture and operational efficiency. The prime driver for this consolidation is the need for better coordination between security and IT operations. The human element, we're seeing silos of these functions, and leaders want to bring their teams together and facilitate collaboration for a very good purpose. By integrating these functions, organizations can streamline workflows, reduce redundancy, improve the speed and effectiveness of their response to security threats. Common themes for consolidating endpoint and vulnerability management include improving service and productivity, maintaining compliance, improving coordination, and helping them recover from an incident. And coordination allows for, simply put, a unified approach to managing and securing all endpoints, ensuring that vulnerabilities are promptly identified, remediated. And we know, and we see this all the time, the importance in today's environment where remote and hybrid work models have expanded the attack surface, making it more difficult to secure endpoints. Integrated solutions such as Syxsense provide comprehensive visibility into the security status of all devices, enabling more accuracy. All the data out there, we want to enable more accurate risk assessments. And then on top of that, prioritization of remediation efforts where the rubber meets the road, right? Moreover, combining endpoint and vulnerability management helps in optimizing resource allocation and reducing the complexity of managing multiple tools. It supports the deployment of new applications, updates more efficiently, right? This holistic approach not only enhances security, but also supports regulatory compliance, right? And improves overall business continuity, minimizing risks of breach, downtimes, other negative effects. There are many other benefits too, as well. And we've seen over the years a number of reasons, even for consolidation, even dating back to before the COVID pandemic. In the Capital One data breach 2019, over 100 million customers had information exposed. While the root cause was a misconfigured web application firewall, post-incident analysis revealed challenges in coordination between the security and IT teams. A consolidated approach could have enabled earlier detection and remediation of the configuration. So while we see, even while the root cause may be something else, this consolidation and coordination is highly impactful for the organization as a whole. So again, the rubber meets the road. How do we get there? We see within these steps to successfully consolidate endpoint and vulnerability management, organizations should follow a structured process. Step one, as we see here, assessment. Begin by evaluating your current tool set, identify strengths and weaknesses, determine specific needs and goals. Do an assessment, have a clear understanding of the gaps that you need to fill. Step two, planning and developing a comprehensive consolidation strategy that aligns with your organizational objectives, right? From the onset, the goal should be to align with the organization as a whole. This strategy should outline desired outcomes, but also key milestones, timeline for implementation. And this is where you would engage stakeholders from both IT and security, and even start the process of breaking down silos between those teams, even during the planning phase. Step three, selection. Choosing an integrated solution meets what you have outlined in step 1 and 2. And then also understanding that you want to look for solutions with robust vulnerability assessment, continuous scanning, asset discovery, patch management, risk prioritization, reporting, and analytics. A holistic tool set that can address all of these pain points and help to fill the gaps that you have outlined in the earlier steps. Step 4 is now implementation, right? Deploy the integrated solution, migrate existing data from your current tool sets. This may involve configuring a new system, setting up automated process, etc. This is where your tool sets capabilities, not only capabilities, but the support function of the vendor you're working with is highly important. As well as in step 5, training, right? Provide comprehensive training and engage your vendor to work with you for this, for IT and security teams on the new system. Ensure that all team members understand how to use it, interpret the data, right? And look for a system that helps your team interpret the data, right? And respond to identified vulnerabilities. And again, we want to focus through all this on training to be proactive, not reactive, right? That's the goal. Proactive security planning and monitoring. Step 6, continuously monitoring, right? Once we have our tool in place, once we have everyone knows how to use it, we want to continuously monitor the performance of the solution, not just the performance of the solution, but how much we are using it and the adoption of that solution within the organization. Assess its effectiveness and regularly review security metrics, vulnerability reports, system logs to identify any issues, areas for improvement. And step 7, optimization. Regularly review, optimize your processes to ensure ongoing efficiency and security. This may involve updating your consolidation strategy, refining those automated processes, incorporating feedback between the IT and security teams, and again, continuously optimizing, refining this approach, and having a feedback loop where your team as a whole can get the most out of their system and use it to adapt to new and emerging threats. Our manifesto. So this is a little bit about really our goal with this report in terms of how we got here and what we the cost of really inaction, right? Why? The big why. So failing to address security and endpoint management, it comes with significant costs. Financial losses, number one. The average cost of a data breach in 2023 was around $4.88 billion, according to IBM, right? For larger organizations, the stakes are even higher. Downtime alone can cost over $1 million per hour, depending on your business, how important uptime is. And for most businesses nowadays, it's a common thread among all types of businesses, from any business that has a web presence, right? So we've seen that Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack in 2021 led to 4.4 million in ransom payments, but weeks of operational disruption. And for a company who is moving liquid gold, those costs are super high. On top of that, reputational damage, right? Just soft costs. Customers and partners losing trust in organizations that fail to protect sensitive data. And as security becomes more and more of a mainstream topic and the public is more and more aware of this, the more it affects reputation. We've seen that with Equifax, and we've seen that with British Airways and how their non-compliance with GDPR and HIPAA can result in hefty fines, and any other companies that are applying to those standards, right? And so the broader impact really is inaction also affects, right, employee morale, investor confidence, operational efficiency. It has a viral effect throughout the organization and through the company at large in the marketplace. So security is a very important support function, maybe the most important of those all for the overall business. And our content within our ebook covers that. So before I take questions, I'd like to introduce Syxsense and reveal how we address this important issue. So complexity drives vulnerabilities, and you may have heard in the news that Syxsense was recently acquired by Absolute Security. If you're wondering what this means in terms of our solutions and products, let me tell you why we think our combined capabilities are a game changer for the industry. It's a very thoughtful acquisition by Absolute, and it's going to lead to an exceptional amount of value for our customers. Over the last 2 years, we have seen fundamental shifts in cybersecurity. Firstly, because organizations are using more applications and services with more devices. In complex and opaque supply chains, this makes it harder to keep on top of vulnerabilities consistently. At the same time, as we spoke about before, threat actors are using tools like generative AI and just automation overall to speed and scale attacks. And they're getting more organized in doing so. And we now know with much certainty that most breaches are caused by unpatched vulnerabilities. And the number one root cause of ransomware is unremediated vulnerabilities. So we need to ensure our organizations are prepared and ready to prevent the vulnerabilities from impacting our operations and our data security. Lack of resilience is expensive. So again, touching on the monetary issue, again, an average cost of $5 billion, 10 times the cost of recovery from ransomware. As I mentioned, outages are not limited to just cybersecurity incidents. Downtime of any sort can cost up to $1 million per hour. So I just want to reiterate all of this. Going back to our recent real world, another recent real world example, CrowdStrike, faulty kernel costs, right? Costs Fortune 500 companies about $44 million each. So any downtime at all affects companies. So now we're seeing, resilience. The word resilience is emerging, right, as the new imperative. And we see the cybersecurity ecosystem in two parts: cybersecurity and resilience, right? And resilience is, we've heard of zero trust before. Resilience is kind of an offshoot of that, where we're going to assume that there's going to be impacts at some point, but we're going to work to mitigate it. Cybersecurity proactively reduces the number of these disruptions. Almost every organization has a robust cybersecurity solution set at this point in time. And then resilience is the ability to withstand and quickly recover from disruptions when it does happen. This is what separates the winners from the losers. Leaders focus on resiliency because they're obsessed with maintaining critical business functions, ensuring security policy enforcement, recovery from outages in hours, not days or weeks, we mentioned before, even down to minutes, protecting their corporate fiduciaries from liability. Now let's talk about how we empower it in Absolute. So what are the pieces that deliver this automated end-to-end cyber resiliency we're talking about? Let's bring some clarity to that. We all know that it starts with being embedded in the firmware. That persistence enables Absolute to deliver AI-powered insights and automations like no one else. The result, you get global visibility, automated security, remote access, fast recovery. Once you deliver on these four competencies, You have end-to-end resilience across your endpoints, applications, and networks, protecting you at all times and minimizing disruption. So I'd like to pass it back to our audience for Q&A. Thank you for spending time with us today, and looking forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thanks for that, Rocco. Very enlightening. I've got a question here, Rocco. We have a comprehensive Microsoft license. Shouldn't this include everything we need to keep our PCs up to date?
Well, typically, and we actually, historically, our most displaced competitor is Microsoft. So SCCM, WSUS, and we see Intune. And the key aspect here is third-party patching. In terms of the ability to patch third-party applications outside of Microsoft, Syxsense has 150 applications that they patch. We test and vet all of these applications too. We just spoke about CrowdStrike. We provide a filter between the vendor and you. So we're not just blindly pointing to the vendor and pulling updates. We test them before they go out to you. And this, in terms of third party, we see how important they are. Google Chrome vulnerabilities in the news, Adobe vulnerabilities, Screen Connect, Zoom, right, Firefox, you name it. Third-party vulnerabilities are just as risky as not patching your Microsoft systems. So that's a particular area that we see as a weakness in a lot of Microsoft products, and we're able to fill that gap. On top of that is ease of use and automation. Syxsense's workflow editor allows lean IT teams to easily automate a lot of the processes that we find Microsoft customers say that takes them a long time to accomplish. So ease of use, as well as patching those third-party applications, are two of the main reasons we see in the day-to-day of being gaps that are tended to be filled by alternative tools such as Syxsense. Great question.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add a third to that, which is the compliance factor, the fact that Syxsense can monitor devices for their compliance on a continuous basis and remediate those variations as well, which is, it's horses for courses, isn't it? Microsoft have products that work to a certain extent, but if your environment is more complex, you've got virtual machines and so on, you need a dedicated, and we think a consolidated tool to do that. Okay. Oh, there's a follow-up question. Hang on, it's the $1 million one. How much does Syxsense cost?
That is something that if you reach out and schedule a demo, we'll be happy to share with you. I personally don't have numbers off the top of my head. I don't really, deal with pricing of Syxsense, to be quite honest, when I'm more on the technical side. So
Right.
it's not something we're gatekeeping on you. Want to share with you. I just want to let you know I personally don't have those numbers. So reach out. I'll be happy to get them in front of you.
I think it's worth saying that the software is licensed based on the number of endpoints you have, so you don't need to pay for what you're not using, and it's cloud-based as well, isn't it? So
Yes.
you don't have to worry about hosting or machine to run it on. And I suppose that brings me nicely to the fact that we've got a new updated ROI calculator. So if anyone's interested in not just the cost, but how much return on investment that Syxsense can give, then please reach out and we'll be happy to walk you through that and see how much you can actually get back in terms of productivity, of avoided costs, in terms of data breaches and attacks and so on. Okay, so we'll be sending an email to you after the session to give you link to the recording and also to the reports that Rocco mentioned. But we'd also like to invite you to come along on the 12th of December to join. I'll be on the session then, but with our experts, Mary Yang, and with Rob Brown, who looks after the customer success of our managed service customers, and they're going to be looking at a bit of future gazing, looking at the trends of what's happening in the world of endpoint security in 2025 and in the broader industry context. So we'd very much like you to join us with that. And thank you again for joining us today. Okay, thanks again, Rocco. And
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Mhm.